Hey everyone, it's the Nitty Professor. Red Wing Heritage Boot sole options. What are they? What are their pros and cons? That's what we're going to take a look at today. So we're going to start off with the so-called traction tread sole. I don't have every sole that Red Wing ever put on a boot, but I have the most common ones and maybe even a couple of uncommon ones. So we'll cover a pretty good swath of the ones that are available. So this is their traction tread cushion crepe wedge sole. Now, I've heard people tell me that it's made by Vibram. I can't personally prove that. However, it's very comparable based on my limited experience to the Vibram Christie sole. In fact, I've heard that some Red Wing boots actually do use that sole. This is a very thick, relatively cushiony sole. There is some traction available on here. I would argue probably enough to satisfy most moderate use needs. It's available on your classic mocks, basically, of which there are quite a number. So it's going to be a fairly high comfort level, fairly soft, not too hard to break in. It's got a nice cushion feel. As far as the durability, to the extent that that is an issue, which for a lot of us it is, moderate durability. It's going to hold up pretty well for daily casual, light work. But if you're going to wear it on like concrete or maybe even like heavy duty carpet or something like that and put it to a lot of hard use, it probably will wear down. Now these particular boots I haven't worn just a ton. I got these in August, so I haven't had them a long time. Starting out, the break-in process of these boots with these soles is pretty straightforward. They also have these. I like the fact that with some of these boots you get color options, so they have a black option. We can see here on these boots, which I've put to a harder use. This is the Alpine Classic Mock. There's a little bit of wear, but it's not extreme by any measure. It's they're holding up really well. And again, I've had these less than a year, but I do put them to a fair amount of hard use. So advantage of these, they're not going to pick up a whole lot of mud and that kind of thing. You can see, well, we have a little bit of dog dew in there, but that's sort of par of the course around here. Another thing that's nice about these soles is it's that classic look. These have been around for a long time, so if you want to look dressed the part of the heritage boot wearer, the sole is just one that people are going to recognize and say, yeah, that's like totally Americana, and looks good and wears well, comfortable. I use these in all kinds of weather. I probably wouldn't use them on ice, but I've used them in rain and slush, and it's got kind of a nice silhouette. There's nothing like weird looking at all. So a very common option on the mock toe boots in Red Wing. Let's go to another option that's quite common, which is the mini lug. So we'll grab these Iron Rangers. The mini lugs you're going to find on the Iron Rangers and the Blacksmiths, and for all I know, maybe one or two other models, but that's where I'm most familiar with these. So this is a pair of Iron Rangers. I actually did wear these out in the snow yesterday. Believe it or not, we've had snow. And these are also relatively new pair of boots. The mini lug is a Vibram product. It says it right on there, and it is, sorry about these laces in the way, oil resistant, which is, I'm guessing, I don't think it says that there on the traction tread, so I'm guessing those are not oil resistant. So that's definitely, a positive feature of these mini leg soles. They're pretty durable. They're like chunky without being too chunky, because they're not like the big lugs, which I'll show you here in a minute. So they do give a little bit of traction. Now I'll show you my other sample pair of the mini lug soles, which are these IRs that I've had for probably about 4 or 5 years now, the Hawthorne Mule Skinners, and gives you an idea of how they wear. So the heel definitely is, suffered some abrasion on there, and you can see that the laces, you can tell the laces have been touched, but given how much use I've put these soles to, I would have to say the wear is not by any means extreme. So durability on these soles is pretty high, and it's going to work on gravel, cement, any kind of abrasive surface. These boots personally are like my go-to lawn mowing boots. Sorry, Red Wing, but you know, I gotta wear them, so that's what I do. And that's one of the reasons why there's a bunch of grass stuck up in there. It's kind of funny, really, I think. One of the things that I have noticed personally, and I've heard wearers confirm this for me, is that the sole, not only is it kind of hard, you know, it's like hard from even the comfort standpoint. It's like relatively comfortable, but it's definitely not as comfortable as the traction tread sole. And I feel like this material somehow actually hardens after time. And I'm not sure, like, what have I exposed it to that would do that to it. But I don't know if we can do a visual on these two that even shows you anything that you can kind of wrap your mind around. But there's just something about the newer ones that seem a little bit rubberier, and then when they get old, they just get kind of smooth. And I would not want to wear these on ice, that's for sure. I think that would be kind of dangerous. You know, the rationale behind these is they're supposed to give you kind of a slimline look without going to the chunkiness of the, you know, sort of traditional Vibram sole. Pardon me, those of you who prefer to say Vibram, sorry, I know it's an Italian company, but I've just said Vibram since I was like 12. So I appreciate the lugs. When I'm mowing the lawn, I kind of lean in on the ball of my foot. I'm not going to have any traction on the heel, right? But I can get just enough traction on this part of the sole to where it's useful. So I do appreciate the traction, and the, you know, you can use these for like light hiking. I've definitely worn them in snow and slush, not had a problem. And it's going to be a long sole life. So I think the look, people are going after the look of these. They're, again, not as like overblown as the traditional Vibram lug sole, but they're also going to not offer you all the advantages of that particular sole either. Now, on Red Wing, the Vibram, the traditional lug sole, they don't have it on model after model, right? They have this this one kind of winter boot, I think it's called the Roughneck, where you're going to find that sole. And on these lineman boots, I have them. So these are definitely, they're harder wearing, they're like more substantial, it's going to be a little bit more to the break-in, but I feel like the material on these lug soles is a bit superior to the mini lug. It's not as hard, so consequently I think these are better suited to winter use than the mini lug sole. I don't know what the material is. It'd be interesting to, you know, if you're in on like chemical composition of these soles or that kind of thing, it'd be interesting, because this is definitely rubberier, and you know, from that standpoint it might wear through a little quicker, but the lugs are so deep that that's, you know, kind of not consequential at all, because it would take a long time for me anyhow to wear through these lugs, and they're very useful when it comes to any kind of rough surface, you know, just out and about on paths, trails, even urban hiking. They're just cushiony enough to me to make a difference. They're kind of like a middle ground for me between the mini lug and the Christie sole. So I find these pretty comfortable. Obviously one big disadvantage is they're going to pick up a ton of mud. They pick up rocks. Whenever I take these off, before I put them in the box, I have to dig the rocks out of them and stuff like that. So sometimes I have to just like hose them down, you know, to get the debris out of them that got stuck. But they're pretty, you know, more or less of an all-season sole, but they're also very rugged looking. So there are certain things you could wear these for, and certain things you probably wouldn't wear them for, just because they're very rugged looking, very like kind of sporty, or maybe like work oriented in a way that the mini lug sole is not, which I think is one of the reasons why those are quite popular. So in any case, I like these soles a lot, but there are certain things when I wouldn't wear them for. Like if it was muddy or something, I probably wouldn't wear these just from the standpoint of, oh my gosh, it'd be such a cleanup. So let's look at the last popular sole option. I've got a couple of these from Red Wing. These are a pair of Merchants, and here we are talking about the Chemigum sole. So the Chemigum sole is, my understanding is a rubber and cork blend, but I'm not like sold total. I mean, I don't know where the cork is in this, but it does have rubber and it is blended, and there are different colors. So I have it in the black on these Iron Rangers, which are the Writer's Room. I have it in a green, and the green has a lot of tradition behind it. Think Army, you know, think World War II type of vibe, very vintage, very sort of heritage aesthetic. And it's definitely a work style of sole. I like the fact that, you know, there's not a whole lot of, you know, depth to the pattern on the sole. On the other hand, there is still really good traction, and since this material is harder than the Christie style sole, the traction tread sole, it's just going to hold up longer. I've had these boots a fair number of years. I don't wear them like a lot, but I've worn them enough to do some wearing. You know, you can see from the threads, you know, and they hold up really well. These are not going to break down as fast as the traction tread sole because the material is just harder. And yet, in spite of that, it still has that slimline kind of look. So these boots are versatile from the standpoint of the circumstances in which you could wear them. Obviously, the Merchant has a little bit more casual type of vibe to it than the Iron Ranger Writer's Room, with the more, you know, minor work type vibe with the added toe cap and all that stuff. So versatile, very versatile sole. Not the most common sole, you know. I think it's probably, you'd find it more on maybe some of the older models. I don't even know like today what models the sole is on. I'm not sure if it's on, because the Beckman I think has, it's like a half sole. So yeah, I've only seen them on just a few models, but they are going to be very durable and not too hard to break in. I think the material on this sole is superior to the sole on the mini lug with the what the Iron Ranger normally has, and I think that's probably one of the reasons why the dudes who designed these Writer's Room limited edition Iron Rangers, that's why they chose this sole. What's also cool is that it has the little wings that symbolize Red Wing, and I think that's just awesome. I just think it's fun to look at all the little wings on there. So it's a nice subtle branding effort on the part of Red Wing when we do have the Chemigum soles. So those are the soles that I have on all of my Red Wings. I've covered all the ones that I have. If you have other soles, like maybe a leather sole or the half sole, and you want to like weigh in a little bit on the other options for Red Wing heritage boots, I'd love that. Your experience with these soles would also be of interest to me. You know, it's interesting how you have different soles for different boots. Now I know there's an IR that does have the traction tread sole. I don't know if there are any mock toes that have, you know, the lug sole, but there's kind of my rundown. Overall, I think the sole options for Red Wing are quite good. They're high quality. They don't just put on their own sort of, you know, random proprietary subpar sole. They do an excellent job with the soles that they put on there. The only thing I would probably change is I would probably maybe on the IRs, I might go to the Chemigum sole. I think those would look pretty cool. So if you have other thoughts or other suggestions, let us know. Appreciate your tuning in. Y'all have a great week. Talk soon. Bye.